Testing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Go. Hi, this is Steve Gillmor. This is the Gillmor Gang. We've been talking for the last 45 minutes about Larry Ellison. We now rejoin this show already in progress. Go ahead, Robert. What were you saying?
I was just saying that we're all biased on this show because some of us work for Salesforce.
Oh, let's start it again. I was hoping to get that "we're all biased on this show" thing out of the show. Whatever do you mean by "we're all biased"?
Well, we should have our disclosures right up front. You know.
Okay.
I work for Rackspace, and
you start first.
What's that?
You work for who?
Rackspace.
Yeah, they were the sponsor of the show.
Yeah, but I work for Rackspace. So I'm biased. So let's just get that out, and that way we can have a fun conversation.
All right, we'll see how the what are those things called? Disclosures. We'll see how the disclosures go as we go through the show.
Exactly. So, anyways, what's going on is the enterprise world is being disrupted. Big companies are moving their data off of their own data centers and are hiring cloud-based services like Amazon or Rackspace Cloud, and are moving into somebody else's data center. That's a huge shift that is really bugging Oracle because Oracle sells databases to people who own data centers. And this Exalogic Elastic Cloud is exactly that, is to try to stop that disruption from happening and stop these big companies from moving off of their own data centers and onto somebody else's data center.
All right, so I have to introduce everybody again. So, John Taschek, you work for who?
I work for a cloud blog, a Salesforce.com property.
Salesforce.
Yeah, I think I work for you, actually, Steve. But today I am.
Steve.
Today I do. I'm sorry, who said that?
Phil, I said we all work for Steve.
Okay, Phil Windley of Kinetics. What's Kinetics since you work for me?
Kinetics is a cloud-based development platform for event-based systems. So
okay.
I guess in Robert's definition, I'm biased too.
Okay, and Danny Sullivan, what's your excuse?
For the cloud?
Yeah. Do you work for the cloud?
I have all my data in the cloud.
And is the cloud in a box?
I don't know what it's in. It's just out there. And my data goes out there and I don't care. Although I have to say it's interesting because I actually, I'm editor of searchengineland.com, but I'm actually a partner in a company called Third Door Media, which is the media company that oversees that in our conferences and everything. And we probably have about 13 different employees. If you add up all our contributors, we probably have maybe 100 different people who all get involved. And we don't actually have physical offices. And it's a situation that we're able to do because of things like the cloud. We run our mail off of Google's apps. We run our web servers off of Tiger Tech. We run our feed analytics, I think, off of Google as well. We've got other things that are cloud-based. So, it's nice because I remember starting things out in 1997, and it was a pain trying to do all these things and figure out where your web hosting was going to be and everything else. It's nice and cheap, and it works.
Do you use a Mac?
I have a Mac at the moment. It runs Windows 7.
Really? So you're a Windows guy?
I'm more a Windows person. It does a better job of running multiple monitors, I find. I
see. So is the machine that you're using, is that part of the cloud, or how does that work?
Well, that's interesting. The machine that I use lets me get to my data that's in the cloud, but I actually still have a lot of local data, although much less than I used to. It used to be like I would do trips when I lived in the UK, and I'd come back to the US, and I would be constantly trying to figure out how I was going to carry all my data with me. My mail and everything else. Now my mail's archived on Gmail, so I don't have to worry so much like, I can't get this mail from 2007. I can find it that way. I have more documents that I keep in the cloud. So less and less stuff is actually having to stay local to my machine, although I'm still kind of old school, and I still have some of it.
So, Robert, it seems like either nobody cares that all their data is in the cloud, or what?
Well, for the enterprises, it's a cost thing, and
but
there's
for
a
people,
trend. For people, it's the same thing. We're moving away from things like Microsoft Office to things like Google Docs and spreadsheets, right? And why are we doing that? there's a cost savings. You don't have to spend the $300 every 18 months on a new version of Microsoft Office. But there's also a collaborative thing that you get to work with other people. And like Danny said, our economy is changing from being centralized, from you going into an office and working in an office every day, to where you're working with people around the world on projects, and you need better tools than you used 10 or 15 years ago.
So you think that, Google Docs and things like that are better tools than their desktop equivalents?
They're getting that way, especially if you need to collaborate with other people. They're still not. I mean, if you went feature by feature, they still don't. They still don't measure up feature by feature. So, somebody who is a hardcore accountant, for instance, will always say Excel is better than Google spreadsheets, at least for the foreseeable future. I can see a time, 10 or 15 years in the future where Google will catch up to that feature set, and we'll finally get everybody using cloud-based services. But I could also see a time when Microsoft also figures out, we need to go completely cloud and get rid of this idea of we're going to sell software to people.
Well, don't they actually? I mean, I think Microsoft does have Office in the cloud, and in fact, they've got things like Excel.
They do, but they
cloud.
still have it pretty tightly tied to buying something. The version that's totally cloud-based is not good. It's not as good as Excel, on your actual Windows 7.
Yeah, the problem with Microsoft and cloud-based apps is that you just have to sit there and try every menu item until you figure out what they've crippled. It's like they crippled the browser to make sure that you couldn't write to it. And now they're crippling, I don't know what. John, what are they crippling now?
They cripple things in the tables. They've taken out some of the formulas. You just have to dig in. But I think they're cutting out things. Clearly, they've taken some surveys of what people use and don't use, and put in the most common features that are used in there. At the same time, trying to compete with Google on each of the the things. But obviously they're a software company. They want to sell software. You have to buy the software in order to get to the cloud, and then they'll start adding iterations into the cloud features, just to compete on what Google does better, which is collaboration and sharing. I don't think it's 10 to 15 years in the future that Google will catch up and pass them. I think it's much closer. It's just that Google itself is not really pushing forward on the development that much. They're getting their enterprise aspects together first, whereas Microsoft is definitely software packaged. Their biggest contribution to the cloud, I think, is bug fixes and patch management, where it's automatically pushed to you every night that it's the Windows is so bad that they push you an update every night. That's using the cloud. I think that's their best feature.
What? Updates?
Hot fixes, patches.
And how much do they cost? They're free, right?
No, they waste a lot of my time. They if you put it on auto update, which I do and maybe other people do too, it will reboot your system at 3 a.m. or whatever time you set it for. But it's a complete waste of time. So they're getting better at putting it back into the state that it was at the time of the reboot, but it's not there. So it's a waste of time. So you have to actually turn that off, which means your system's exposed and the security, it's got security holes in it. So I don't know what to do there. But I'm a Windows guy anyway.
Really? So I got 2 Windows guys. Robert, what are you on right now?
I'm Mac.
And
but I got a Dell machine over here too.
A Dell?
Yeah, I haven't turned it on in a month though.
Really?
Yeah.
So what's it over there for?
To remind me that there's a Windows 7.
Yeah, it still exists.
I haven't used Windows 7. How is it?
It's actually pretty good. It's it works. It doesn't crash. It has a nice UI. It starts Google Chrome up just fine. So
yeah. I agree with Robert on that. That's what it's for. It's for launching Google Chrome.
Yeah, but Google Chrome it looks like a toy browser.
Well, you can use IE9 now, which is actually pretty good.
Why would I want to do that?
Because maybe you're in the Microsoft world and you can't afford the extra $400 for a Mac.
They've taken out all the piggish features in IE and made IE9 more Chrome-like, except with the Internet Explorer interface. So it's faster, but I like Chrome. Chrome is so fast. I mean, how can you argue that Chrome is not a good
It's
browser?
fast and the UI is very simplistic. And
I don't care
actually
about
like
the web.
that.
I like apps. I'm an apps guy now.
Oh, you are?
Yeah. Aren't you?
I try not to install anything on my Mac because I want to keep it as close to the iPad as possible.
Yeah, I don't install anything on the Mac. I tried. I mean, yesterday I tried to send a 3 gigabyte or 2 gigabytes of video to John, as a matter of fact. And I tried Dropbox, and then I tried Box. And ultimately, after figuring out, it was like this bait and switch thing where, you can't use the web client. You have to use the web client to get to the Mac client, but there is no Mac client. It's just, I don't know. I gave up, and then John set up an FTP. Remember FTP?
Yeah. I was going to recommend Kermit and Xmodem, but FTP looked like the better solution at the time.
I mean, it's just insane. I mean, to the point that Robert, you were making before about how Google is catching up. I see no evidence that Google is catching up.
Did anyone watch the Wall Street Journal interview with Eric Schmidt?
Yes,
today?
I did. That was fascinating.
No, I was sleeping.
It's on replay.
I'll go watch it. What did he say?
It takes 20 minutes. Basically, he said our competition is Bing, not Apple or Facebook, which I would say is complete bullshit.
Yeah, that's misdirection. He's totally trying to get he's trying to say Microsoft's the big competitor when it's really Apple.
Somebody's got a microphone that's rubbing against their shirt. I think it's you, Robert.
Nope.
Oh,
maybe it was
it's
me.
Danny. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
I don't think so.
Go ahead. You were saying, John?
Oh yeah, I mean it's total misdirection. I mean it's Schmidt was saying that Bing is the main competitor. They kept asking about Apple. They kept asking about Facebook. They kept asking about net neutrality. But in the end, his whole thing was Bing. Bing was the main competitor. But all he needs is a number 2 on search engine, and he has to prop that up in order to avoid all the
antitrust.
Antitrust, yeah, exactly. So it's
right. So he did that, but I mean, his major points, however, were that Apple is a closed but great competitor.
Yeah,
that was it. And he basically said nothing about Facebook. On the other hand, Arrington had a conversation with Zuckerberg, which was quite interesting, I thought.
Yeah.
And Zuckerberg basically says, we don't want to compete with Apple. He didn't say anything about Google, basically. So if you read between the lines, it's all about Google. So they're competing with Google.
And Schmidt even said that Facebook is a competitor by not saying it, and instead saying that if you added social to every single thing that you do, add social to search, add social to everything, then you would get a better experience. And who's got the social market but Facebook? So of course he's saying Facebook is.
Well, he said that just because Facebook has the data doesn't mean that Google can't get it.
Which is what he said before.
Right.
He said that last week too.
Right. Do you agree with that, Danny? Do you think?
Sorry,
do you agree with the idea that Google can get that data?
Yeah, I think they probably can get that data. Not to the depth that they want, but there's stuff that they can pull out and that they get already that they can just even the crawling. There's stuff that they could get directly through Facebook Open Social. I think that's what they call it. I can't remember whose open is what. Oh, they're the Open Graph, right? So at the Zeitgeist thing, he did this lunch. Arrington was there. I was there. You had the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, a couple other people. He's answering press questions. And this is, I think, the first time I think he said, well, we can get that data if we need it. And what I'd asked him about, and there's actually a video on our YouTube channel where you can hear him saying it, but it was like, well, why can't you get it now through the Open Graph? And he was really stressing that Facebook terms, you really look at the Facebook terms, and he just kind of left it at that. And I went back and I looked, and it looked like the Facebook terms might not allow you to do stuff if you're using them for advertising without Facebook's permission, which, of course, everything Google does is powered by advertising. So I suspect that what he's saying is, look, we're going to get this data, first of all, because we can find it on open sources without having to get it directly from Facebook. Secondly, if we do have to get it from Facebook, we're going to find a way to get it, and that may include, I suspect, putting more pressure on Facebook. Because in the end, it's difficult for Facebook not to give their data.
You're breaking up a second.
From Facebook.
Can you repeat that?
Sorry. I was going to say, what I think you'll probably see Google do, if they cannot come to an agreement with Facebook to get the data they want, is to then ramp up the pressure that Facebook is somehow holding data captive that belong to their users. So in other words, if you're a Google user and you're a Facebook user and Google wants to socialize your search experience, but Facebook won't let them do it, then Google is going to turn around saying Facebook will not allow you, the Google user, to get your data that belongs to you out of Facebook, and you should have that right.
Yeah.
So
I mean that's an old theory.
Right, and that's what I expect that they'll probably
users,
ramp up.
And users don't really care that they can't get access to their own data.
I think users will care if there's some cool feature that they want on Google that they cannot have because Facebook will refuse to give it to them.
So, in other words, what you're saying is that Google has to build some cool, shiny object that Robert gets excited about.
Right.
And then they deny it to everybody until they get so excited about it that Facebook gives in.
Right.
What do you think, Robert? Is that going to work?
I don't think so. But I if I was at Google, I would start where they have some strength, which is Google has a lot better information on all the businesses around the world. I mean, if you search for a business, Joe's Pizza Kitchen or something, you're going to find an entry with a lot of data about that business. You go to Facebook and you search for the same business, and there's nothing there. I know I've been playing with the Facebook Places a lot, and I just don't see any data about businesses on Facebook. So I would start there, and then I would add social into that layer, and start moving out from where Google has some strength.
Is Places Facebook's first failure?
No, I don't think it's a failure. But I think it's not cooked yet.
But what is it? What is it?
Places is where is the Foursquare copy. So you check in at your local, wherever you go. So if we're all meeting at the Ritz this afternoon, we check in at the Ritz.
It's not a failure.
And tell everybody on my Facebook page that, hey, we're hanging out at the Ritz this afternoon.
It's not a failure. It's driven Foursquare into extreme activity so that they actually are worth something when they get bought by Facebook.
So it's a failure. So they have to pay a lot more.
No, it's not a failure. I mean,
yeah, I'm disappointed with Foursquare. Actually,
really?
Dennis over there has been talking a big talk and been on the show even, and promising some major new big features. And he ships this Facebook 2.0, which is like rearranging the chairs on the deck of the Titanic.
But what do you really think about it, Robert?
Well, I still use it every day, but I'm expecting more out of Foursquare than what they're shipping, and it's they're leaving a major opening for another player to come in and just take them out.
Like who?
Like Google and Facebook. I'm using Facebook's Places quite a bit more, and I'm seeing my friends use it quite a bit more.
Right. So Facebook
than Foursquare.
So it isn't a failure, and they're doing fine. Google, sure. Google Latitude feels like an espionage trap.
Yeah.
It's like, what did I just do? What am I going to do? Did I already do this? I thought I did this 5 years ago and it didn't matter. What is Latitude?
You know what? It's really interesting visiting these companies and seeing the culture between the companies, and then talking to people who have sold things to each of these companies, and Google doesn't know how to waste time. If you go there, there's a very engineering, we need to get every ounce of productivity out of our people possible, and they grate against the idea that we're going to let our people waste time on Facebook, and their products have that view. They don't have a lot of games at Google. There's not a games division at Google. They don't have a good games platform. They don't understand that world of people wasting time. Facebook, on the other hand, totally understands that world and understands why you would want to walk in someplace and check in, right?
Phil, could you please quiet down? You're just way too noisy.
There's actually something interesting coming out of Apple that's not interesting, and that is their failure with ping. And I've been studying some people who were part of the Lala acquisition that Apple made, and a lot of them are leaving Apple and going to Google. Apple does not. Steve Jobs in specific does not understand the social world, and understands it even worse than Google does, which is saying something.
Yeah, I mean, if I put everything that Steve Jobs doesn't understand into a box, it would be the size of a thimble.
And that's about it.
There's nothing that he doesn't understand. I totally disagree with you.
You like Ping, and you think that they have a great social strategy?
I didn't like Ping to begin with. It had Lady Gaga, who I think is fantastic, and then nothing.
Yeah, and you know why that was? Because Steve Jobs said,
right.
Get my favorite artists.
Steve Jobs is such a loser. He cracked open the carriers. He completely reinvented the desktop as a mobile device.
I'm not taking that away from him.
Okay,
he's the genius of all time, but he's
taking a breathe now.
Even a genius can have a blind spot, right? And talking to the people inside Apple who are leaving Apple, who are pissed off, he has.
That's why you're talking to them.
But Robert, if I'm listening to what you're saying, what I'm hearing you say is that nobody's done places right or location right.
No, absolutely.
I mean, nobody's
yes.
got a compelling reason why I want a place.
Robert, what did you mean by no? You agree?
I agree with that.
Okay.
Location is I feel like I'm in the DOS world of location, I've seen enough to know that there's a lot of value there, but I haven't yet seen the promised land of a GUI. You know, I mean, if we were back in the 1980s, we would know computers are going to be a big deal, right? But we hadn't seen them become a big deal for everybody yet, and that's how location feels to me.
What do you want, Robert? What are you missing?
That's a.
I think you need
if I knew what I wanted, I'd go and build a company. Right?
I think you need a reason. I mean, it's like I did Foursquare for a month, checked in a bunch of places, and when it was all over, I thought, okay, why am I checking in all these places? It doesn't do much for me.
Foursquare has two things. Serendipity around people. So you check in. Oh, there's Danny Sullivan's also at this Ritz. I can text him and say, hey, Danny, we're in the same place. Let's meet up for lunch. And then serendipity around place. So you check in somewhere, and it shows you tips that people have left. So when I checked in my hotel in Paris, it said the best French bakery is right around the corner. That serendipity around place is really interesting. It's just it's very stilted. For instance, on GoWall, I can leave a photo. I can leave some comments about that. And I can't do that yet on Foursquare. I can leave a trip, so I can tell people, hey, these are 5 things that you should do in Paris. But GoWalla has other problems that they have no users compared to Foursquare, and especially compared to Facebook. You check in on Facebook. On my Facebook, I have hundreds of people who've left their location on Facebook. The problem is Facebook doesn't have this idea of a place. It has an idea of a person, but you can't see any data about the place that you just checked into. You can only see that your friends have checked in there or who has checked in there. I mean, I checked in at the August Capitol party the other night, and there was lots of people there who checked in, but you couldn't leave pictures. You couldn't attach any information about that place to the database. Foursquare has done that. but it feels empty. It doesn't let me express what I really want to about the place yet.
Don't you think the serendipity around place needs a broader context, in the sense that I don't really care about the people who are in the same restaurant as I'm in, because I likely am going to see them. I really care.
That's not true. I've checked in places all the time, and I see somebody that looks interesting, and I go over and introduce myself. But I'm that kind of person.
But you're Robert Scoble.
You know, and that's how I meet people, right? That's how you meet random people. You see somebody's checked in.
Yeah, but there are two types of software development. There's developing it for you, Robert, and then everybody else on the planet.
Actually, Facebook is the best way to do that, because Facebook lets you actually tag people in the restaurant who are your friends, and then you can see who else is also in the restaurant. I think Facebook has nailed that piece better than even Foursquare has. But there are times when you just want to see. Jerry in the chat room said that's how I get people to buy me drinks. That does happen sometimes, you know.
It's the location economy.
Yeah, you know. And Kenny, you know, this is a good example. Everybody has a different idea of how to use these systems or what they're for, and Kenny's like, tagging friends is a horrible idea. I think that's a great idea. You know? So we're in the 1980s of this location space. We still haven't figured out really what they're for, and we haven't seen a service who has really expressed it well in a way that Kenny feels.
What does that mean, 1980s? Does that mean,
well,
like,
if you were back in the 1980s,
Studio 54? I mean, what are you trying to say?
If we were doing the show in the 1980s, we would be talking about all the great DOS or Apple II apps, right? And
maybe
we wouldn't
you would. we'd be yelling into our tin cans and string, but we wouldn't.
Yeah, you know, the ability to do this, we would have to be on KGO radio or something, you know. Good luck with that. But
that's where cable access came from.
Cable access, yeah. But we would know that the potential of the PC world is still in front of us. We hadn't yet seen it expressed in a way that most people.
Well, that's what Zuckerberg says in the conversation with Arrington. He's setting up mobile as being the platform. Everything starts with mobile and goes out from there. And I think that's the one thing that most of these guys haven't figured out yet, is that there is no desktop left. It's mobile. And, you know, it is not about converting desktop applications to mobile. It's about converting mobile apps to desktop.
I mean, I think Google's figured that out. Who do you think? You mean application developers haven't figured that out?
I just don't think that the strategies of the major companies have aligned around the inversion of the problem. I think, you know, I mean, you see people like RIM and what was that company that used to be in business? Nokia.
Right.
You see them trying to figure out how to, you know, save themselves, you know, rather than starting from the position of where we are actually at and then building out from there. So I mean, you know, it's a huge problem for people who like Sun, you know, where the dot crash, you know, how they survive moving forward. But this is a completely mobile environment. The fact that location is even being discussed is kind of absurd. It's like saying that, you know, if I hold up my car keys, you know, and say that this is the, you know, some sort of API, it's not an API. It's the key to the thing that you turn it on and then you go and you do something. So the key to turn on the internet is the mobile device. I can see that I'm in total agreement with everybody here.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I agree with you, and I guess I don't know that it's I guess I wouldn't say the mobile device is the key to turning on the internet. I would just say that the mobile devices are key to turning on. Well, maybe it's the same thing, just everything. But, you know, I think you're right that a lot of our internet activity had revolved around being on the computer, and yet we take our phones practically everywhere, much more than we would take our computers, even more than we would take our iPads if we're so prone to do that. And they are turning into these friggin' little tricorder devices. That's basically what it is, right? Mm-hmm. We're running around and we look like, I always laugh, we used to live near Stonehenge, right? And people would come out there and they'd go on the tours, and you'd get these little things to listen to so that you could hear what it was telling you. And they always looked to me like a bunch of people out of Star Trek looking at their tricorders rather than actually looking up and around at things. And now you see this everywhere. You see people go, and where should I eat? What should I do? I'm in this city, and everybody's looking at this little box in their hand rather than looking at the city itself, which is, there's negatives and positives to it, but it is that mobile computing device. And I think that this goes back to what Eric Schmidt was saying 2 weeks ago at that lunch. He was saying that you've got these financial analysts that still don't get what Android means for them, that they don't understand, well, where's the money you're making off of Android, because Apple's getting all this money.
That's the other thing.
He was saying, but he was saying, look, it is important to us because that is where computing is going. That is the way forward, and they are one of the major providers of the software for that kind of revolution. And since they provide so much already through the internet, that's a crucial payoff for them.
But don't you think it's
Apple money, I suppose?
Don't you think it's kind of strange? He said this in the Wall Street Journal video that John was referencing as well. He's talking about something, then he says, he talks about Android, and then he says with this kind of bemused expression on his face, we're not getting credit for how amazing this thing is. Doesn't that send off big alarms?
I thought that was odd because he's got plenty of numbers to give out if he wants to get credit for it. And in fact, they have given out numbers in terms of the activations that are going on and such like that.
Right, but there was this graph. There was this chart the other day, this chart of revenue. And it's like, everything else, Nokia, everything else is huge in terms of numbers of devices. And then there's the revenue, which is like Apple and Nokia. And goodbye.
And fair, but fair to say, it's that he's right when he says they're not getting credit in the sense that if you are going to calculate the revenue off of mobile based off of how much money are you making by selling devices, they don't sell them. They don't have them other than the Nexus 1, which
of course he's right.
Isn't going to register anything.
Of course he's right. But he's right about something which is a fatal flaw of the Google strategy.
Yeah. It's not a fatal flaw because he's right in that if that's the way you're looking at it, you're not getting credit. Now, if we were to turn around and say,
he doesn't want credit, he wants actual cash, and he's not getting it.
He is getting actual cash.
Very little.
I can't remember what. No, that's not true at all. It's not true
Charles
at all.
Fitzgerald. How many people know who Charles Fitzgerald is?
I do. I worked for him.
Yeah. Charles Fitzgerald was the brains behind the Microsoft sort of attitude for many years. He was the guy that when I tried to get to Mark Lukowski about Hailstorm, they set me up in a room. It was like an interrogation where I would ask Mark a question, and then he would look at Charles, and Charles would answer it. Then we would move on. It was like... And Charles wrote this post about yesterday or today on his own private blog, because he's not at Microsoft anymore. And he basically said that the problem that Google has with Android is that all the other companies are coming in and separating the revenue from the device. In other words, they're separating Google search from the Android devices. They're spending cash to say, okay, put Bing on this.
Who's doing that?
If somebody in the chat room, it's on TechMeme.
Well, but this goes back to what I'm saying about him not getting credit. I can't remember what it was that just came up recently, but it was something like more than half the mobile ad clicks that were coming. I think this was the stat. More than half the mobile ad clicks that were coming off of just the iPhone, were ad clicks that were going through Google's network. Mm-hmm. And on Google's own Android.
You're locking up again.
Right. That's mobile revenue as
Say
well.
it again. Say what you just said again, please.
I think it was something like more than half the ad clicks that happen on iPhone are coming through Google ads, Google mobile ads or Google ad networks or anything else like that. So if you were going to really try to figure out how much money are these companies making off of mobile, you would also look at how much money are they making not just on selling the devices, selling the operating system, but how much are they making off of advertising? And if you start looking at advertising, I think Google would probably measure up more. And in that's where Eric Schmidt shoots himself in the foot, perhaps intentionally. Google does not break out their ad revenues that way. They are loath to tell you how much money that they make off of contextual ads on the web, how much money they make off of domaining, how much money they make off of mobile. And the only time they're going to eventually get to doing that is when they feel like they really had better prove that actually we're making quite a bit of money off of mobile. But I don't think he feels like he needs to do that just yet. If it ramps up more,
you can't break out individual revenues because then they would have to adhere to financial analysts monitoring each section of it over time. And if they ever saw like a down dip, then of course it would impact the stock price negatively. So they always try to bundle it up together, just like IBM does and Oracle does. They try to bundle it in together.
But he may have to unbundle it at some point, at least now and then, if he's trying to get the financial analysts to start driving his stock down because they think that Android is simply this money loser for them.
I just think it's a
that's
huge.
When see it happen.
I just think it's a huge negative signal to have the CEO of Google, looking like confused and upset that Android isn't getting the credit that it deserves.
I think this.
But I didn't watch I didn't see the interview to see if he looked confused. I mean, what I read like somebody who was saying like, we get credit. We should be getting more credit.
But I think Android gets a lot of credit. I talked to the Nokia executives who are pissed off at not getting credit for market share.
Yeah, but there's everybody who's getting driven into the ground is giving Google credit for having destroyed their businesses. But is Google making any money off of it? Danny's saying, and I think he's correct about that as long as they keep a large, if not dominant percentage of clicks moving through their devices over their OS, they're going to do just fine.
I think we're looking at it wrong. If you let's say you let Windows Phone 7 or Nokia or RIM or Apple take over the world of mobile, and they have the ability to lock out Google. I mean, when you were at the iPhone press announcement, they didn't put Google on their phones. They had Bing turned on all their phones. So the war over, and it's some audio is really bad.
You're going dark. I think Google's jamming the show.
Up.
Steve, I was just getting a lot of static. Sorry. In my headphones.
Yeah, repeat what you didn't say.
But if you let Apple or Nokia or Microsoft take over the world of mobile, they have the ability to control the user interface there at such a rate that they can lock out Google and keep Google from making any money. And in the future, are we going to be doing any of our searches on what's the percentage of doing searches in the world? It's going to be done on mobile devices.
Yeah,
and
this is what Charles Fitzgerald says. He's talking about how by losing China, Google is devastating their model. And then he says, and in the U.S., Microsoft is persuading Verizon to use Bing for Android phones with what looks like just cash.
Yeah, they are. And so, a little perspective. I haven't read that piece, but it probably did not say that Baidu is screwing up in the United States for not being in the United States market and losing it here.
It says Android stalwart Motorola is using Baidu and Bing on its phones in China, plus there are a variety of efforts by Chinese operators and handset vendors that fork Android.
Well, but which is great. It's like, okay, Google might not win in China. That does not mean it's not a company that's not going to make huge amounts of money, any more than the fact that Baidu will never, ever, ever be a major player in one of the major economic places in the world, which is the United States. But nobody says, oh, Baidu can't make it in the United States. Oh, they're really screwed up, and they're not going to be successful.
Well,
huge market.
Wait
in China,
until they
absolutely.
own us. Once they own us, then it'll be different.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll see it then, but it's not going to be something in the foreseeable future.
Okay, well, that's a good point.
So, but on the Verizon thing, let's go back to Verizon because that's a very interesting thing. So, when Google did the deal for Dell to get onto the Dell desktops, they spent, I think, in about $1 billion to guarantee it. I forget the number of years, but I think it was 2 or 3 years. When that came up from renewal, they let it go to Microsoft, and they didn't seem to fight for it. Probably because at this point, it doesn't really matter what you put on your computer. You're going to still change it over to Google's. They don't need to buy that anymore. So you go back to your phones. how much are they making off of Android? Well, in some of these cases, when the carriers are picking up Android, I don't think Google's actually paying to be the search provider. That's the search provider that they put up there. In the case of Verizon, it's really interesting because Microsoft actually paid Verizon to become their default carrier before Verizon was carrying Android phones. Right? They were doing that. That was the big victory. Then Android comes along, and suddenly it's Google everywhere. Not only just Google everywhere, but Verizon running around doing commercials about the Droid phone with Google and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, that was a huge victory for Google, and it's very unclear on whether or not it was one that they actually had to pay for. Belatedly, Microsoft seems to have come back into Verizon and said, hey, we were supposed to have this deal where we were like your search provider, so what's up with that? And so now we've got this where I think on some of the phones you've got the changes that are happening or whatever. But guess what? When Verizon finally implemented the plan on the BlackBerry to shift people over to Bing, yet a lot of people go, oh, how do I get back to Google? They had to do this official post saying, oh, sorry, if you're trying to get back to Google, you're going to have it here. So I think the deal, and if Bing can keep pushing on Verizon to make sure that Bing is a provider and maybe the default provider, is great for Bing, but it is not game over for Google because of that.
No,
hey, Danny, what's the market share of Bing over since it was announced last year or whatever it was? I mean, has it been? I know it didn't.
They've come up to around the 12% range, roughly, top of my head, which is probably double where they were. Most of that gain actually seems to have come off of Yahoo, but you can pick your provider. You may dispute it. Google's pretty much been untouched.
It's at like 68% or 70% or something like that.
Yeah, they're around the 60 to 70, depending on whose numbers you look at.
So if you're talking about mobile, one of the things we haven't talked about is Facebook. I mean, the Facebook app on my iPhone I like a lot better than the website. And frankly, that's where people, I think, are going to be using platforms like Facebook. And so Facebook with ads maybe is even more interesting than Google.
That's what you get for saying anything.
Guess so. Everybody disagrees or they agree.
No, this is
the Facebook
stunned
ads,
agreement.
I hear huge numbers I hear a number of search marketers that I talk to who tell me that the Facebook ads are very, very compelling to them and that they're wanting to spend on that as well. Although interestingly, I had probably 3 different people I had this conversation with about a week ago, and all of them said that they were complimentary to Google. That they didn't say, oh, I'm going to take my money that I was spending on Google and now I'm going to spend it on Facebook. It was more like, I can't even spend enough money on Google, so now I'm going to start spending some more money on Facebook, and I'm going to be pulling it from other areas that they help with the stream. But no mistake, Google would love to have that money as well. They'd love to have the kind of pre-search platform for ads that Facebook has.
I think the advertisers they're being disintermediated also, if they haven't been already. But they'd be doing A/B tests. They'd do half Facebook, and run the same ad campaign on Google, and they'll check to see, is it coming from a mobile platform, is it coming from the desktop, and see. And then just by basic metrics alone, the spend versus the ROI they get, they'll start investing more. But I don't know. Facebook on mobile, I don't do anything with Facebook on mobile as far as ads go that I know of. I just don't see it as a platform for that.
Yeah, I never see ads in my Facebook mobile.
Yeah, so
what did you say, Robert? I couldn't hear you.
I never see ads in Facebook mobile, which is sort of why I think I like it better than the desktop experience.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm using Facebook less than I used to, but on the mobile version, I don't know. I never see anything. I don't see any ads. Google, you can see ads. But I don't know, Danny, is Google in trouble here? I mean, are they?
No, Danny's saying that they're not in trouble. That they're going to keep going just fine. Thank you. Right?
Yeah.
Right, Danny?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, do they need something like Yelp?
The question isn't whether Google's in trouble for standing still. Well, that is the question. Are they in trouble if they just stand pat?
I think that Google has a great solid lead on the search front, a huge lead on it, and I don't think that they're standing pat on that at all. I think the difficulty Google has is expanding into other areas in a way that people really recognize and think, oh, you're not just this one-trick pony. I think it's a misnomer to call Google a one-trick pony. I don't think search is their only kind of success that they've had out there. AdSense alone, which is not search, is another huge pony, if you will, for them. I think people forget what it was like for a lot of publishers before we had AdSense come along. Your money was going to be made by hopefully getting a few Amazon links that were out there. And that's really transformed the market in a huge way.
Yeah, but I mean, basically, that's the same strategy that Facebook did with likes. It's turning the internet into their website. So on that.
Yeah, but they did it before.
It's
exactly. They're turning the entire internet into their media, and so in that regard, Facebook is simply following Google. But nobody looked at likes and said, Facebook is simply doing what Google's already done. Right? Oh my God, Facebook's genius.
No, they didn't say that. They said, "Oh God, Facebook's taking over the world." Evidently, that fear has receded.
But I think that the difficulty Google faces is that you're going to have this. First of all, you have a big chunk of the internet, which is Facebook, which exists on the internet, where their ads have no presence. A big and growing area, and Google doesn't like that. Google doesn't like things where they're not part of it. And so I think that they see that as advertising revenue that they would love to tap into, because in the end, they are an advertising company. And they just really don't have much of a social play on that. So, how that's going to play out, I don't know. They don't really seem to know. They still seem to be figuring it out.
Does anybody really think that Google Me is going to be any more successful than Google Orchid or Google Buzz or Google whatever the real-time thing was?
How can they not be more successful?
Yeah.
Well, okay. So you're saying no, they're not going to be successful.
Set the bar low enough, Steve, and anybody can step over it.
So which is it? Are we beating up on Google, the poor little people that own every bit of advertising on the universe? I mean, the returns on so-called social advertising are not exactly something to write home about yet. I mean, the fact that Facebook is making money doesn't mean that they're making a lot of money.
Yeah, their revenues are around $1 billion from what I've seen in the press.
Yeah, if Zuckerberg's donating $100 million, he's got to have some money coming from somewhere.
But that's $100 million in stock, which the valuation is very high. That's not $100 million out of his pocket. He doesn't have $100 million in his pocket. So.
I have no idea what he has in his pockets. I'm not sure I want to go there.
Oh, he's got a Facebook phone in his pocket.
He hasn't sold that much stock yet, right? He wants to keep.
He doesn't have a
his
Facebook
company.
phone. Wasn't
he could
that
have
the
sold
whole
a
point?
good chunk at a pretty good valuation, but he doesn't want to give up control of his company. So the donation today on Oprah's show was $100 million in stock, which is pretty significant, but.
All right.
Yeah,
well,
we don't know yet. I mean, that's to be seen. What the stock is worth. I assume.
Oh, come on.
No, we know what the stock is worth because there is a private market. Investors can buy Facebook shares on the private equity market. There is a second market now.
There's a major Hollywood movie coming out.
In the chat room says
Did you
there's
see
no
that?
stock yet. That's true. Public people can't buy Facebook, but investors can buy Facebook, and they are buying Facebook at a pretty high valuation.
I agree, but what Newark schools can do with that stock is nothing until it goes public.
Oh, no, they can turn that around and sell it right now.
They can?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So that's worth something. So that's something out of his pocket.
Yeah, but did it come out of his pocket or did it come out of Facebook? I have to look at the deal and see where the stock actually came from.
Maybe that's what that meeting that Arrington walked into was about.
Right.
That was it exactly.
Yeah, he said. Jerry said he didn't give it to school; he gave it to his foundation. Jerry, so is his foundation then going to sell it and turn over the cash to the school? That's what I have to look into.
So he needed a giant tax deduction. That's what it is.
No, I think he needed
it's
some
so
PR
absurd.
because he's getting bashed by
NBC
the movie
News,
and other things.
The Today Show.
Movie. Yeah, that's coming out next week, a week from today. Right?
The Today Show has been littered with this, analysis of the gift as being to counter the PR, the bad PR of the movie. That is just so absurdly stupid. I just can't believe it. I mean, the media has nothing to offer.
It is
really
absurdly
nothing to
stupid,
offer.
but that's sort of the fabric of the storyline that's going on with Facebook right
But
now.
then-
So
Plus,
the
it's totally
fabric of-
stupid to think the movie is going to cause anybody to think, oh, well, now I'm not going to use Facebook.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
at worst they're gonna go through and think, oh, I guess that Zuckerberg guy's kind of a dick, and then they're gonna say that on Facebook,
yeah,
and they're gonna keep using Facebook. My God, the number of companies and things we use. The people still pumping BP gas into their cars, right? And you have alternative cars you could use. They didn't suddenly say, oh my God, the entire Gulf of Mexico has been destroyed with oil. I'm going to start biking. They got back into their damn cars. They filled them up with gas, as I did as well, and they pumped it away.
Right. I can't get access to my
Zuckerberg
data.
possibly screwed somebody else according to a fictional movie that they saw and they entertained, and in 2 weeks will have forgotten about. Yeah, I don't think that's a Facebook PR problem.
To be 24 years old and worried about your personal legacy, though. That's what he's. That's
Oh,
what he's
please.
Doing.
I don't.
This is a crisis of vapidity on the part of the media.
Yeah.
The media is
probably
offering no
created
value
cynicism.
whatsoever.
It's cynicism as to somebody's, and I've talked to Mark about this. I believe he really, truly believes the school system is screwed up, and he wanted to do something about it.
Kidding.
But,
Of course. If
Yeah.
anybody
but
in
we're all
any city
cynical
would
about
love to
people's
get $100 million
motives,
bucks.
right?
What?
We're all cynical about people's motives.
I'm not cynical about it at all. I think it's obvious that he's doing it because he wants to.
We're cynical about Larry Ellison's motives, right?
Well, what are Larry Ellison's motives? That wasn't the pre-show. You know how Letterman goes up into the audience before his show?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that was part of that show. So what are you talking about, Larry Ellison? We haven't heard anything about Larry Ellison on this version of the show. What are you talking about?
Well, Larry Ellison having this big conference and attacking Salesforce, among others.
Don't you think that's
Amazon.
interesting?
They were attacking Amazon. I mean, come on.
Well, I mean, I found it fascinating that Werner Vogel tweets in support of Benioff against Larry. I mean, what is he trying to do? I mean, I do understand what he's trying to do. He's trying to justify $1 million machines that have been built by this big toy called Sun that he is trying to swallow and digest. Yeah. What do you think, Phil? You're from the enterprise.
I agree. I mean, I think they've got Sun. They've got all these machines. They're trying to figure out why it's relevant. Clearly, Oracle is making lots of money on licenses. There are plenty of people out there who want to keep their jobs building or maintaining large IT shops, and all these people, kind of have. It's not collusion in the sense of like AngelGate, but they certainly all want to keep the status quo going. And so, if they can sell into the latest hype about the cloud, and that also suits their customers' needs because it helps their customers justify why they exist, then that's what they're going to do.
But it's like what Danny said about Facebook. I mean, everybody is going to read and listen to and think, if they do, about what Larry says on cloud machines that aren't connected to anything remotely like those machines, unless Facebook buys 5 of them.
But that's not the market, right? I mean, there's not. I don't see the cloud in a box, whatever it's called, Exalogic, I guess. I don't see that as a competitor to something like Rackspace. It's a competitor to people in data centers at your Fortune Global 1000 company setting up individual servers as opposed to being able to buy this big thing, plug and play.
It totally is a competitor of people in the cloud world, because we're taking data centers in enterprises and closing them down. I'm seeing that as a huge trend. Rackspace growth is being fueled not by startups, but by enterprises who are closing down data centers. And so Ellison is right to attack Amazon and other cloud players, Microsoft Azure, Google's App Engine. These engines are taking business away from Oracle, and he's right to be worried about that.
Yeah, I misspoke. I didn't mean to say that it wasn't a competitor. It clearly is. I was thinking more about Steve's comments with Twitter and things like that.
John, what do you think?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's the interesting part about this is that this is the first open world that had Sun plus Java 1 plus all the other assets of everything that they got, and they release a gigantic hardware box. I mean, it's not it to show differentiation. They didn't do that. They just showed something bigger than it was what was before, unless they're trying to tell the world that they are after IBM and HP, and they are a real hardware vendor. That's the only reason that he would come out with a box like that. And then the cloud thing, as Mark Benioff had pointed out before, it seemed like an afterthought because it didn't have any cloud. None of the other parts of the event, tents or anything, had anything to do with cloud. It was all about boxes, and so maybe that's what they're trying to do. They're setting themselves up against IBM.
Yeah, so I see two statements. One by Schmidt saying, with a bemused tone, that we're not getting credit for how amazing Android is. And both Microsoft and Microsoft had this roadshow with some idiot who was attacking Salesforce left and right. I mean, it's like, why are they raising the visibility, particularly at the corporate, enterprise level of these solutions that they've been, bad-mouthing as being trivial and an application, not a platform, et cetera, et cetera. Why are they going after the smaller players? Well, the answer is that they're not smaller. The scale that these cloud companies in aggregate are reaching now is taking a serious bite out of, the traditional vendors.
Yeah.
The three you just mentioned.
Not only that, but even a small player can be very disruptive. Just ask Blockbuster about how disruptive Netflix was to its business. They should have attacked them much harder 10 years ago than they have today.
Well, I'm waiting for Comcast to try and crush Netflix. They're the only guys that can stop that.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're going to be able to.
I don't think so either. I just got a Roku box. Sorry, I had to remember what I bought. Roku box, which costs less than $100, and it comes with Netflix right on the home screen.
Yeah, but the problem is that what do you get on Netflix on streams? You get
not much today,
old
but
movies.
Growing. It's growing every day.
Maybe.
I think Netflix is betting its entire business on
HBO says to the studios, we're not going to give you $1 billion. You can get that $100 million from Netflix. See you later.
Yeah, but soon Netflix is going to be able to pay the $1 billion because they're going to have enough business to support that. The world of the home entertainment is changing radically due to Xbox, PlayStation, Boxy Box, Apple TV, Google TV is coming soon. Everything about my home entertainment system is going through radical changes.
Okay, Danny, do you think Google TV is, since we've already ruled out Android as being a revenue center, is Google TV going to be where they make money?
I don't think they're going to make per unit fees off of it, but I think they're going to make advertising off of it, certainly.
How's that going to work?
I would expect that they'll probably do some kind of revenue share with it. There's going to need to be a search box. There's going to need to be ads that are going to be there. And at first, I think some of the people are going to simply provide it because it makes sense to provide it. Then when people get savvier and say, like, you're Bing, you're like, hey, why don't you use us instead of Google? Then some of these people might say, okay, we're going to do that. And then Google will probably counter with, well, we'll make more money for you anyway. And I think the other thing that's important in all this is that there is still a user experience. It's fine for people to say, oh, you know what? Google's going to get pulled off of all these Android devices because these providers are going to get more money from other people. But at the end of the day, if you swap out Google for Bing, Bing had better damn well give a great experience for the people on those phones, because otherwise those people are going to start going into their phone provider saying, what the hell is this? I think that's one of the reasons why you don't see the iPhone dropping Google for Bing. I guess that was one of the things that was in the news today as well, is that apparently Google and Apple have extended their agreement. And this is despite the fact that there's no love lost between these two companies. Well, why not? Why would they not just go to Bing and do it? probably because they think Google is going to give people a better experience. Maybe even that they think Google's give people a better experience, even if Bing is actually the better experience, because Google has a halo around them that people perceive to be better quality. So it's really bad if you're Apple to suddenly switch things around and have people upset at you. So back to Google TV, I think that I think that they'll probably make money off the ads directly, and down the line they may have to start doing an ad revenue split.
And where are they going to get the, what's the controller going to be? It's going to be your phone, right?
Oh, well, with Google TV, your controller is you have a remote. You have a regular remote that, like with the Logitech version, slides out and you have a keypad. But even an Android phone, you can also interact with Google TV, at least from the demo that they showed, where you can do things.
But that's not rocket
forth.
science. I mean, you can do that with any of those phones.
Yeah, but you don't have to. Android is not a requirement for Google TV. But what may be interesting is that Android may sync very well with Google TV in a way that makes you like it, in the same way that, like, a lot of people like the iPhone because they have iTunes. When the iPhone first came out and people were like going, and this is great because I got all my music, I was like, who cares? It's like, why do I want my music on my phone? I just could not get it through my head why I bother with it. And then now it's like really annoying if with my Android phone, I still have to go back and figure out, now how am I going to get my music back onto that? Because I use it, and if I go rollerblading and I didn't take my iPod,
right, because they have no music software.
And Danny,
Mr.
last
Taschek.
night, YouTube had this live concert, and I couldn't get it on my Roku box, and it bugged the crap out of me. And that's
you can't
where
get anything on your Roku box.
New living room is going to be decided. Who's going to give me the living room that really makes me happy? And I haven't seen it yet.
You can't get anything on the Roku box. I don't know why you.
Well, I can't get it on my Xbox or PlayStation either. I tried on all three systems and I can't get it. So now, like Xenophrenia in the chat room is wondering, should we wait for the Google box and see will it deliver this live YouTube experience to us? If it does, I'm going to buy one. It's worth $100 to buy Google TV for that.
I don't buy it. I'm not going to buy a Google TV unless
you should see the quality
unless it's connected to a really cool screen and it comes in at Sam's
and that's
for
exactly what
$1,000 less.
I have a 60-inch TV and I hooked my Roku box up. It's HD. It's 1080p. It's $59. It's
right,
great.
and they're going to get crushed by Hulu and every other major player.
Is Hulu still around?
Yeah, Jeff Zucker just quit.
I'm going to have to jump off in just a little bit, by the way.
All right, well, my dog is going to jump off the cliff, unbeknownst to her, in just a second. All right, let's go around the table one time, and I say Google TV, massive fail, won't go anywhere. It'll be yet another Orchid. I mean, it'll be big in Brazil. Okay.
It's not even big in Brazil anymore. Facebook is taking Orchid out all over the world.
I think Google's suffering from running out of markets to fail in. That's what I think. Danny?
I think Google TV will probably be a success, and even more so if they can start cutting deals with providers directly. I think Dish TV is a really big thing. If that's built into my DVR, it's great. And I disagree that they're running out of markets. I mean, they've done very
successful markets to fail in.
I know. Why don't? But I wouldn't say that they have had markets to fail in. They've been successful.
If Charles Fitzgerald's right about Android, they're gonna, they're making a really nice operating system for the mobile devices that everybody else is going to make money with. It's going to be Sun 2.0 or 3.0.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. So.
Okay. Robert Scoble.
I'm still waiting for the perfect device to hook up to my TV. Zuckerberg is a hero for getting schools going. What else do we talk about? Oracle, trying to put the cloud back in the box. Good luck with that. I think that covered about it.
Nice. Phil
and
Windley.
I'm colluding with all the VCs. we're having dinner tonight.
Bin 38?
Somewhere.
As an entrepreneur, Phil Windley, what do you think?
Email me.
I think going back to the location discussion, that location is only interesting as part of your context, and that we're missing the opportunity to throw location together with lots of other information and do interesting things. And that mobile's really an aberration in the sense that it's just going to be computing. We won't think about it as mobile. We'll just think about it as computing in a few years. And it's it's not about mobile so much as the fact that you've got a computing device you're taking with you, and it's going to do everything.
John Taschek.
I have to agree with that. That mobile will be everywhere. It's going to be the replacement for the desktop. As for Google TV, I like the idea. I think it's wait and see. I can't imagine Google getting this user interface right because they just don't have that kind of
TiVo interface.
Yeah, they need to buy the TiVo UI developers in order to make this work, where you can have the video plus some kind of sidebar with information, contextual information. But I don't count on that happening. I'm still going to get it anyway. And as far as Oracle goes, thank you to Larry Ellison for promoting Salesforce.com, Rackspace, and everybody else in his messages.
Okay, and I think it's left to me to say I want to thank Rackspace for sponsoring the show, and particularly Rob Legess for having the idea that we should do this and making it possible for the Gillmor Gang to return. I'd like to thank NewTek and their TriCaster for allowing it to be on video. I want to thank our producer and director, Tina Chase, and I want to thank everybody who showed up, and especially those who didn't. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.
See ya.